what exactly happens in case of the injury? So we have to see here the mechanism of injury. So we will see the mechanism. So what is the mechanism, and what are the different steps that take place in when the cell gets damaged? So firstly, we have to see that this is actually the mitochondrial damage that takes place during the hypoxic conditions. So when cell has a lesser oxygen availability, the hypoxic condition occurs, cell will undergo the mitochondrial damage. So due to this mitochondrial damage, the ATP concentration will get decreased, and due to that ATP concentration, when it is decreased, it will lead to multiple downstream effects. And similarly, those reactive oxygen species, they will also get increased, and it will damage to lipids, proteins, and DNA. And after that, sometimes what happens actually, the entry of calcium 2 positive ions takes place. So when calcium 2 positive ions, they will enter into the cell, so what will happen? So the mitochondrial permeability gets increased, and calcium 2 positive ions, they also activate multiple cellular enzymes. And after that, when membrane damage occurs, the plasma membrane gets damaged, also the lysosomal membrane gets damaged. So for the plasma membrane damage, there will be actually a loss of cellular components, and for the lysosomal membrane damage, the enzymatic digestive enzymes, those digestive enzymes that are present in the lysosome, they will get released, and they will actually digest the cellular components. As far as the protein misfolding is concerned, this will also take place during the injury, and DNA will also get damaged. So these are the different steps which happen during the injury, cell injury. So activation of pro-apoptotic proteins will take place, and those will cause the apoptosis of the cell. Now here is also this image shows that, for example, if you can see here, this hypoxic condition, this happens due to the low supply of blood. So that is called as ischemia. So this blood loss, when blood supply is reduced, so it will lead to the hypoxic condition, and that hypoxic condition will cause reduced oxidative phosphorylation, and by that there will be lesser amount of the ATP produced, and that lesser amount of ATP production will hamper the sodium potassium pump. That sodium potassium ATPase, that will not function properly because of the absence of ATP. And when this improper functioning of the sodium potassium happens, of the sodium potassium pump happens, what will happen actually? The sodium concentration will increase inside the cell, so intracellular sodium concentration will increase. So due to this increase in concentration of sodium positive ions, the water will enter into the cell, and this will cause the swelling of the cell. So this will cause the swelling of the cell, and ultimately the cell will get swelled. And similarly here, when the efflux of K positive ions is increased, so this will cause the ER membranes to swell, and also the loss of the microvilli blebus, this will take place. So microvilli on the enterocytes, these cells will get flattened, and in this way the absorption will get reduced. And similarly, the second effect is the metabolic effect. So in case of these in case of the cell injury, what actually happens, this is actually the case where the anaerobic glycolysis takes place. So in case of the anaerobic glycolysis, what will happen, the increase in the lactic acid concentration happens, and that will reduce the pH, and by that reduction in the pH, the acidic pH, what will happen, the clumping of nuclear chromatin will take place. So clumping of nuclear chromatin takes place, and also due to the efflux of the K positive ions, so those ER membranes, they will actually lose those ribosomes that are present on the ER membrane. So they will actually lose those ribosomes. So the ribosomes will get detached from the ER membrane, and after detachment there will be reduction in the protein synthesis. So protein synthesis will be halted, and protein synthesis will be decreased, and protein misfolding will start to happen. Now here is also, this image shows that when decreased oxygen supply or some toxin or some radiation occurs, so mitochondrial dysfunction takes place. So first effect of the cell injury is that mitochondrial dysfunction happens, and due to that mitochondrial dysfunction, several different types of the damage happens in the form of ATP reduction, in the form of reactive oxygen species generation, and then the necrosis takes place. And similarly, in case of the different some damage to DNA, there will have the production of pro-apoptotic proteins will increase, and they will actually release the mitochondrial proteins from the mitochondria, and they will activate the apoptosis, and in this way cell will get die. So here is the actually the summary of mechanisms of cell injury. What happens? So we can say that firstly the ATP depletion takes place, then the mitochondrial damage takes place, and then influx of calcium ions takes place, and then there is accumulation of reactive oxygen species, and then there is also the increased permeability of cellular membranes, and then there is also the accumulation of damaged DNA and misfolded proteins. So that triggers the apoptosis. So these are actually the different steps that happen during the cell injury.